Hey everyone! There's a space between what appears to be happening and what might actually be happening that most people never explore. You see distance and you read it as disinterest. You feel silence and you translate it as indifference. You notice someone pulling back and you conclude the story is over. The feelings are gone. They've moved on. But what if that translation is wrong? What if the distance means something entirely different from what you've been telling yourself? Welcome back. It's Anna. And tonight we sit with the mystery of what lives beneath the surface of apparent disinterest. When someone seems to have lost their feelings, but their behavior tells a more complicated story. When distance doesn't mean what distance usually means. When silence is actually the loudest communication happening. Let me illuminate what might be alive in this present moment that you're not seeing. There exists right now in the hidden landscape of human connection, a gap between what people feel and what they show, between the truth living in their chest and the story they're presenting to the world, between the depth of their care and their capacity to express it. Some souls carry feelings they can't afford to acknowledge, feelings that scare them, feelings that threaten their sense of control, feelings that would require them to be vulnerable in ways they've spent years protecting themselves from. So they create distance, not because the feelings aren't there, but because the feelings are so present they don't know how to handle them. You might be looking at someone right now whose distance you've interpreted as loss of interest, whose silence you've read as not caring, whose pulling back you've understood as moving on. But what if their distance is actually them managing overwhelm? What if their silence is them not knowing what to say because what they feel is too big for words? What if their pulling back is them protecting themselves from feelings that terrify them? Let me speak into the nature of hidden feelings and why people hide them. This reflection invites you to consider, what if the person you think lost interest is actually struggling with how much they feel? There's a particular pattern that emerges in people who are afraid of their own depth. They get close. They feel the feelings starting to grow. They sense themselves becoming attached, and then they panic. In the ancient understanding of fear and intimacy, we know that some people are more afraid of love than of loneliness, because love requires vulnerability. Love means giving someone power to hurt you. Love demands that you show parts of yourself you usually keep hidden. It's possible the person whose interest you think you've lost is currently wrestling with exactly that fear. They felt themselves falling. They noticed themselves caring more than they meant to. They recognized that you were becoming important, and instead of leaning into that, they pulled back. Some people describe this as a protective instinct that kicks in automatically. They don't consciously decide to create distance. They just feel the vulnerability rising and their system reacts by shutting down, by getting quiet, by pulling away. And from the outside, it looks exactly like loss of interest, like they don't care anymore, like the connection meant nothing. But from the inside, it might be the opposite. It might be them caring so much they don't know how to function, feeling so deeply they can't show it. This reflection invites you to consider, have you noticed this person's distance increased right after moments of deeper connection? Let me speak to the signs that someone's distance might not mean what you think it means. There's a quality to genuine disinterest that's different from fearful withdrawal. When someone truly doesn't care, they're consistent in their absence. They don't check in. They don't watch from a distance. They don't respond when you reach out. They're just gone. But fearful withdrawal looks different. It's inconsistent. They pull back, but they also reach out. They're quiet, but they're also paying attention. They create distance, but they also seem to care about your reaction to that distance. It's possible the person you're thinking about is showing exactly that kind of inconsistent behavior. They're distant, but not disappeared. They're quiet, but not silent. They're pulled back, but not gone. Some souls experience this as confusing mixed signals. But what if it's not mixed signals? What if it's someone who wants to be close, but is terrified of closeness? Who cares deeply but can't show it directly? Who's interested but managing that interest through distance? You might be seeing signs of this right now that you've been dismissing. Maybe they still watch your social media even though they don't message. Maybe they respond when you reach out even though they don't initiate. Maybe they ask mutual friends about you while maintaining distance directly. Those aren't signs of someone who's lost interest. Those are signs of someone who's interested but conflicted, who cares but is scared, who wants connection but doesn't know how to handle the vulnerability it requires. This reflection invites you to consider, what behaviors is this person showing that don't quite match the story of complete disinterest? Let me illuminate what might be happening internally for someone who appears disinterested but isn't. There's a particular kind of internal battle that some people experience around connection. One part of them wants to move closer, wants to open up, wants to explore what could develop. But another part is terrified, is protecting, is convinced that vulnerability always leads to pain. In the language of attachment and protection, we understand that people develop these internal conflicts through experience, through being hurt before, through learning that closeness can mean betrayal, through discovering that caring about someone gives them power to destroy you. It's possible the person you're thinking about carries exactly that kind of wounding. They've been hurt by closeness before. They've learned to protect themselves through distance. They've developed patterns of pushing away what they actually want because wanting feels too dangerous. And now they're caught between genuinely caring about you and being terrified of what that caring could cost them, between wanting to move closer and needing to stay safe, between their feelings and their fear. Some people resolve this internal conflict by choosing distance, not because they want distance, but because distance feels safer than the alternative, because protecting themselves from potential pain feels more urgent than pursuing potential connection. You might be experiencing the result of exactly that choice right now. Someone who cares about you choosing distance anyway, not because they don't feel it, but because they feel it too much and don't trust themselves or you or the situation enough to lean in. This reflection invites you to consider, what do you know about this person's past that might make vulnerability difficult for them? Let me speak to what you might be feeling in this present moment. There's a particular pain in believing someone's lost interest in you. It hits at fundamental questions of worthiness. If they were interested and now they're not, what does that say about your value? What did you do wrong? What did you lack that made them pull away? But in the deeper seeing, someone else's fear of intimacy is never about your worthiness. Their inability to show up has nothing to do with whether you're enough. Their choice to create distance is about their capacity, not your value. It's possible you've been taking their distance personally, making it mean something about you, questioning yourself, wondering what you could have done differently to make them stay engaged. But what if their distance has nothing to do with you? What if you could be absolutely perfect and they'd still pull back because their own fear is too loud? What if their withdrawal is entirely about their internal landscape and not at all about your worthiness? Some souls spend weeks or months trying to figure out what they did to make someone lose interest. They replay conversations, they analyze interactions, they search for the moment they messed up, and all the while, the other person might not have lost interest at all. They might just be scared. This reflection invites you to consider what would change if you stopped taking their distance as evidence of your inadequacy. Let me speak to a difficult truth about hidden feelings. Even if this person does care, even if their distance is about fear rather than disinterest, that doesn't necessarily change your situation, because feelings that can't be shown, feelings that live only in silence and distance, those feelings don't build relationship. In the wisdom of sustainable connection, we understand that intention alone isn't enough. Someone can care about you deeply and still not be capable of showing up in ways that actually meet your needs. They can have feelings and still choose fear over those feelings every time. It's possible this person cares about you more than you realize, but if they can't translate that caring into presence, into communication, into actual connection, then the caring doesn't matter as much as you might hope. Some people wait years for someone to overcome their fear, to finally be ready, to eventually choose connection over protection. And sometimes that happens, but often it doesn't. Often the fear wins. And the person waiting is left having wasted time on potential that never actualized. You might be in exactly that waiting place right now, hoping that if you just understand their fear is less than #0, 5# is greater than if you just recognize that their distance doesn't mean disinterest. Somehow that will change things. But understanding doesn't create change. Only they can choose to work through their fear. Only they can decide to show up differently. And you can't make that choice for them, no matter how patient or understanding you are. This reflection invites you to consider, how long are you willing to wait for someone to overcome fear they might never overcome? Let me speak to what you actually need in this moment. If someone cares about you but can't show it, you need to decide whether hidden feelings are enough for you, whether knowing they might care but experiencing their distance is a dynamic you're willing to accept. Some people choose to stay, to give the person time and space to work through their fear. And sometimes that patience is rewarded. Sometimes the person does the internal work and comes back capable of connection. But other times the patience just becomes enabling. The understanding becomes permission for the other person to never have to change. The waiting becomes a way of avoiding your own life while someone else figures out theirs. It's possible you need to stop trying to decode their feelings and start honoring your own needs. To recognize that regardless of what they feel, if they can't show up, the relationship can't develop. To choose yourself over the potential of someone who might care but can't demonstrate it, this reflection invites you to consider, what do you actually need from this person that you're not getting? Let me close by speaking to the complexity of this situation. The truth might be that this person cares more than you think, that their distance isn't disinterest but fear, that they're struggling with feelings they don't know how to handle. But the truth might also be that it doesn't matter, that good intentions without good actions don't build relationships, that hidden feelings that never get expressed are functionally the same as no feelings at all. In the sacred work of choosing yourself, sometimes you have to let go of people who can't meet you where you are, even if they care, even if they're scared, even if their inability to show up isn't about you. Because you deserve someone who can translate their care into presence, who can work through their fear enough to actually connect, who values the relationship enough to do the hard internal work required to show up for it. You remain sovereign in your choices here. You can wait for this person to work through their fear. You can give them grace and patience and understanding. Or you can recognize that their journey is theirs to walk and your needs matter too. that understanding their fear doesn't obligate you to accept their distance, that you're allowed to require more than hidden feelings. The power is yours. Before we part, I ask you to consider, if someone cares about you but can't show it, is that enough? Can you build a relationship on feelings that live only in silence and distance? And how long are you willing to wait for someone to become capable of connection? Share your truth in the comments if moved, and consider deeply what becomes possible when you stop waiting for someone to be ready and start living for yourself. You think they lost interest, but wait until you hear how they really feel. I can't tell you how they really feel. I don't have access to their internal world. I can't know their thoughts or their hearts with certainty. What I can offer is the possibility that distance doesn't always mean what we think it means. That sometimes people pull back because they care too much, not too little. That silence can be overwhelm rather than indifference. But I can also offer this, even if they do care, even if their feelings are bigger than their capacity to show them, you still deserve someone who can translate care into action, who can work through fear to offer presence, who values you enough to do the hard work. Trust yourself with this. Trust that you're allowed to need more than hidden feelings. Trust that understanding someone's fear doesn't mean accepting their distance. Trust that you deserve someone who shows up, not just someone who cares from afar. May you choose what actually serves you. May you honor what you actually need. May you never settle for potential over presence. The choice is always yours.